Hi guys, how's it going? My name is xSlamFox, and today the new war quest came out, and so I just wanted to help you guys out on the problems that I had while doing the quest. As you accept this quest, it does recommend that you change the press and hold key. They do this because there's a couple times where you might wind up using it for some glaive throws, or to skip cutscenes. For this guide, I'm just going to cover things that I had small issues with, or things that I took a couple tries to figure out. Anything that's relatively easy or straightforward, just shooting mechanics, I think you guys can leave to yourselves. I don't want to cover those too much, that's just normal gameplay. I do want to cover the mechanics of each quest line or how to beat them. But if it's just normal enemy fights, not a big deal. Each quest does have a couple little mechanics here and there that you need to perform correctly, otherwise you can't proceed with the quests, and so I want to show you guys those mechanics. That's usually what I think people will have the issues with. It does say that this quest takes a couple hours to complete. If you skip all the cutscenes, it probably takes 1 to 2 hours. If you don't skip all the cutscenes, yeah, you're probably looking at more than a couple hours. Starting off with the grineer mission, very straightforward. I think the key to this mission, just to make sure that you don't die or get overwhelmed, is definitely utilize your grenades. And you see that little green thing that I just passed on the left? That's actually a ammo station. So if you click on those ammo stations, you get to refill all of your ammo. So that being said, it's just a pretty normal, straightforward shooter. You can press 2 to deploy cover. You can hide behind your cover while you're reloading. Otherwise, I really just used a ton of grenades for this. I think the grenades are good, and the ammo stands are pretty prevalent. I'll show you one of the ammo stands just so you know what you're looking for. I'm pretty sure there's 3 different ammo stands in this mission. There was one right where I was before. There's one right before this little harder fight. So it gives you full ammo, but you can only use it one time. So make sure you're all the way down to 0 on your grenades. If you just throw the grenades, usually you'll wind up killing all the enemies, and it looks like the grenade throw pattern is very, very straight. You don't have to aim it, you don't have to arc it, anything like that, just point it directly at the enemies and press and throw. This fight right here is probably the only thing that people will have trouble with. It's a lot of sentient enemies, but again, if you just throw the grenades, I would get close. I did it a little bit far away, and I had some trouble with that. I ran out of grenades and I had to gun them down. I think if you run up close and you just start throwing the grenades, it's probably a little bit easier. The only real mechanic of the quest line is to not get caught by these white beams. They're pretty slow. I think they're pretty easy to avoid. There's lots of cover and there's things that you can hide underneath. And again, here's one of the ammo stands. I didn't have any problems with this quest at all. I thought it was easy, straightforward. I think the only problem you can have with this quest is sometimes there's a little bit too many enemies to manage. Otherwise, the second part of the quest, you get the Corinth Prime, and it's pretty much downhill from there. It's a really good weapon. It really just destroys the enemies at the end. So once you get the Corinth Prime, you're pretty much done. I will include timestamps so you can skip around to whatever you want. The next thing we'll move on to is the corpus quest, and this one is definitely a lot more mechanic based. And so I really want to make sure that the core mechanic is understood. They do tell you how to do it. If you press the 1 button on your MOA, it's like an explosive MOA, and then if you shoot it afterwards, it will detonate. So you do have to shoot it a couple times and then it'll detonate. And this is used to clear debris a few times. This is used to clear packs of enemies before you get the other MOAs. All you have to do is press the button on an enemy. Your MOA will run right towards it. Usually it'll take a couple shots as it's running in, and so it'll just detonate itself. There's a few packs of enemies that are a lot easier to clear if you use the MOA technique like that. Here was the first problem that I had. This is very finicky on pressing the button. You really have to aim it right at the console to hit it. You have to hit the 1 button to use the MOA on the command console. The second tricky part of this is for this one, your MOA dies, so make sure you pull out your shield MOA and then use your shield MOA on your first MOA, and then send the first MOA over to the thing. If you just keep trying to send it over, it'll just die to all this electricity. So you have to make sure that the shield MOA is attached to it. Target your MOA, press the 2 button, and then you can deal with the whole finicky attempting to hit the perfect spot to get it to unlock everything. A lot of people in my clan seem to have trouble with this Jackal fight. It's pretty much exactly the Jackal fight if you play the Jackal fight. The only difference is you have to use the tools that you have to beat the Jackal. Your Striker MOA 3 will deal the majority of your damage, and then once the Jackal enters this glittering state, you know, sparks are flying, they want you to use the core mechanic again. They didn't explain that too well, but they want you to use the Breacher MOA and then shoot the Breacher MOA, and then that is how you actually get the Jackal's health bar lower. The second part of this, your Breacher MOA dies a lot, so just try to keep him alive, try to keep the shield MOA on him, like directly on him. The electricity can sometimes kill your Breacher MOA in the second phase when you're trying to get the second bar down. The part where you get to play your Warframe and your Railjack I thought was incredibly easy. I don't think it requires any coverage really. I use the Seeker Volley, and it usually clears out all the enemies. So in that one section where you need to clear a bunch of enemies, I just use energy pads or any kind of energy regeneration and just use a ton of Seeker Volley missiles. The only part of this I had any trouble with was right at the very end, you have to face your Railjack like directly at the thing where it says like repairing and then it says lock on to target. You have to point yourself like directly at it. You need to be facing it 100% right in the middle of the screen for it to lock on. That was a little annoying, but otherwise this part of it was really, really easy. After you've locked on, you actually send in teshin, which is like the next step in the quest. I didn't think the teshin was terribly complicated. It's a simple mechanic for like the energy switches. The main problem I had with the teshin was figuring out how to get all these things down correctly, and it can be kind of hard to see and kind of hard to notice, but what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to break these little tiny generators, and this is more about glaive and movement management than anything. As you're doing this, they don't really show you too well, but as you break each one of these, after you break the first one, a little red glowy thing comes out, and it'll show you exactly where the next one is. So if you pay attention to the red stream, it'll guide you towards your next target. Otherwise, this is very much about pressing and holding just the throw glaive, and then you want to press the middle mouse button to latch onto the glaive, and that's how you're going to get to all of these in time. Is you're throwing the glaive, you're using it as a means of transportation, and you can actually perform a double jump right after you throw the glaive. So a lot of these seem kind of hard to get to. Make sure you're double jumping at the end. And if you watch the red stream, it'll show you exactly where the next one is. This one's a little bit about time management and making sure that you're actually moving with the glaive more than anything. For the mini boss fights, it's just a simple color matchup. Match the color of the thing, the element that they're using. This one started off as ice, switch to ice element. After you deal about a third of its health, it'll change elements. So the attacks, it doesn't even matter if you dodge them or not. Usually you can just tank through it. So it changes to fire element, make sure you change to fire element. When it changes to shock, same thing. I had the most trouble with the third set of disruption gates, and I found for this one to just ignore the enemies. There's way too many enemies, don't try to fight them. Just use your glaive, kill the things, watch where the next one goes, and just kind of run past everything. You'll probably take a little bit of damage, but as long as you're fast and you're throwing the glaive pretty accurately, you'll get all of these down, and you won't take too much damage. And again, it's just the same concept. You're throwing this glaive, you're latching onto it, maybe do a double jump. Try to point it exactly where you're trying to go or a little bit above it for a nice double jump arc, and then watch the red lines to show where the next one that you need to destroy is. And the time, it was a little difficult to manage, but I think it was acceptable. Once you have good movement down and you have a good flowing movement with teshin, I think it's not that bad, honestly. After teshin is the infiltrator, I guess we'll call him. Doesn't really have a name, not explained yet. It's part of the quest, so it's just the infiltrator. The main points of the infiltrator quest line is you have to hack these bypasses, and they are mirrored, but only across the line. So when you're across the line, it is the reverse. It's like the opposite. Otherwise, they don't explain it too well, but your 1 button restores your health, your 2 button is a smoke bomb for brief invisibility, and your 3 button shows you where the prisoners are. In the final escape sequence of this infiltrator mission, I died like 4 times, and I could not figure out why, and it was driving me nuts. And eventually I figured out they just don't want you to go to the left. When this door closes, if you go to the left, you just die. That's just it. If you go past this point, you just die. That's all that happens. So obviously the solution to that is just to go to the right instead of to the left. Not well explained, kind of annoying, but just don't go to the left, just go to the right instead, and it's actually a pretty short run through. Really annoying that they just kill you instantly like that, but otherwise this one was relatively easy. And then I'll move on to the missions separately after this part is done. That's the first part of the guide for now, just for the entry missions.